This is my raven, Sam. He's awesome. I love him. He's a family member. Here comes Remy, my pigeon. But I think a lot of people like the idea of having a raven as a pet, but they don't really know, what they're getting into. And so I make these videos talking about Sam the Raven because a lot of birds end up in cages. This is a old parrot cage. This isn't anything that I use. My birds, it's like a dog. You might want to have a crate available at some point, but all the birds are flying around. There's nobody in a cage right now. Sam doesn't even have a cage at this point. But if you were going to get a raven, you would probably want to have a cage. You would. When they're young, it's like a dog. You crate the dog when they're real young. But he can be a real douche. He can. And he always does this time of year is that, like, if I'm bending over, like Chippy, there was a small dog here named Chippy, and when Chippy was here, I'd be bending out here. I have that. That's a piece of smoked Gouda. Yeah, just threw it on the floor. When Chippy was here, I'd be bending over to put the leash on Chippy, and what Sam will do is he'll fly down and claw me on the back, just kind of like slap me on the back and fly off. And you without the raven, you might be thinking, well, that's cute. That's sort of adorable. Well, it's not really adorable. Think about this. Like if you were walking around and every time you saw somebody, whoever it may be, they came up to you and just slapped you on the back without without any indication, they just come up behind you and slap you on the back, you'd be annoyed, right? Well, that's the kind of shit that Sam will pull. I'm just telling you that having a raven, it's a lot of work. I love Sam, but he's a raven, so you have to understand that. Now look at his beak. Look at how big his beak is. That can hurt. That can hurt. Are you willing to get bit? You want to get bit by a raven? If you have a child, you wouldn't want a raven. The raven might just pick on the kid. The ravens pick on hawks and birds of prey, and since he's a domestic pet, he's still going to have those instincts to torture someone. He can't score around with the hawks, so he screws around with me. He's great. I love him. I just think that you should think twice about any pet that you're going to get. I'll see people underneath my videos. They'll say, well, how many people have pet ravens? Well, more than you would think. There's a lot of ravens. There's breeders of ravens. They're expensive. They're very expensive. So don't think that they don't exist. I believe it goes as far as like numbers of pets. What's the most popular pets? It goes dogs. There's more dogs. Then there's cats. And then I believe it's birds and then horses. So there are a lot of birds, and Sam's the size of like a sulfur-crested cockatoo. It's a lot to deal with. I'm telling you, if you have a kid, you might not want a raven. I mean, look at the beak. It hurts if he wants to get me. If he wanted to get me, he could poke out my eye. With that said, I don't think he's going to poke out my eyes. He's not. I raised him. I raised him from the time he was 3 weeks old. He was sent to me by the breeder at 3 weeks of age, and I fed him. He's totally bonded to me. He knows that if he poked my eye, he would hurt me. He's not going to do that. But still, if you have a kid, you don't want a raven. And I've had people contact me, and then I'm talking to them, and I'm like, so you have a kid and you want to get a raven? You're an idiot. You are an idiot. By the way, you cannot own an American raven. You can't just go out into the woods and get a raven. That's totally against the law. It is. There's a Migratory Bird Act, and you cannot have any species that is indigenous to the United States like that. excluding invasive species like the brown sparrow. A brown sparrow you could have. It is not protected under the Migratory Bird Act, and either is a starling. So you could, hey, see, he just grabbed my thumb and it hurt. What, you think that doesn't hurt? It hurts. It hurts. Going back to what I was talking about, like a brown sparrow. Like, I've lived with those, and a lot of the reason that people want a crow is that there's like this myth about them. Oh, they're the smartest bird in the world. Oh, really? How many birds do you know? How many birds do you know? None, right? You've just read some story, or when you were in second grade, you read an Edgar Allan Poe poem, and the raven, and then the teacher talked about. All birds are smart, okay? Ravens, crows, they're not necessarily stable. Pigeons are some of the most stable pet birds. They're great. If I'm walking, say we're in the studio, we're not at my house, or even at my house, and I'm walking around with a ladder, that bothers a parrot, that bothers a raven, but you can walk right by the pigeon and they stay wherever they are. It doesn't flip them out. Yeah, he's smart, but, it's not what you all think. You should really think about any bird that you're going to have and know that if you're going to get a bird and it bites you, and then you're like, I don't want to deal with the bird, it's in a cage, you're a jerk. Like everybody always says that, oh, crows, ravens are so smart. Yeah, it's a bird. It's smart, okay? It's smarter than a dog. I know it's hard to believe because people look at them and they're like, well, that doesn't look like a mammal, so how could it be smart? Listen, they're very smart. They're warm-blooded, and they're extremely intelligent. Now, brown sparrows, I've worked with them for years because legally I can. It's an invasive species. It's like a starling. I can work with that. I can't work with a blue jay. You have to have a certain kind of license to do that. But they're so smart. Brown sparrows are so smart. They hunt in packs. They're very, very smart. So when I hear people say stupid stuff like that, like, oh, the raven, it's one of the smartest animals on the planet. Well, just use the category of birds. Birds are some of the smartest animals on the planet. That's true. Ravens, brown sparrows, they're very smart. A blue jay, very smart. A gray parrot, very smart. A pigeon, very smart. They're all smart. They're all smart. Don't get a raven unless you know what you're getting into. Are you willing to get bit? There is no correction with birds. You can't physically correct the bird. And by the way, every time I see somebody saying something like that underneath a video that I do about birds, like somebody says something, take your abusive shit and take it someplace else, okay? It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. You cannot correct the bird. You can verbally correct the bird and you can give it verbal pressure. Yes, you can do that, but you can't physically give the bird a correction. Think about it. Think about it. It's a big investment, and you're gonna be living with the bird for what, 25, 30 years? You sign a contract every time you get a pet. You sure as hell better know what the pet's capabilities are before you get it. No, but we don't do that in this country. People just like, oh, look, I want that. It's beautiful. It's cute. Parrots. People want parrots because of the beautiful colors, or a finch because of the beautiful colors. And then the birds live in cages for their entire lives. Finches, that's horrible. Or a canary. You want to get a bird, you better be able to hand train it. You better be able to hand train it. And if you see this and then you get a bird and that bird is living in a cage, you're a douche. You're a douche. He's a douche, but he's a douche of a different color. I love him. He's great. He's a raven. Look at Sam. He's so obnoxious. I love Sam. I do. I've raised him since he's a kid. He's totally bonded to me. I love the guy. He's awesome. Just know what you're getting into. Stop thinking this bullshit about, oh, ravens, they're the smartest bird on the planet. Do you know how many species of birds there are? This is a common species that's been studied, okay? I don't think there's been a lot of studies with brown sparrows. And no, he is not sharpening his beak when he's doing that. They don't sharpen their beak. That's not what's going on. You don't. It grows like that. It's like a toenail. If anything, he's wearing it down. He's not sharpening it. It's just nonsense. It is. It's nonsense. See what he's doing? It's not sharpening his beak. It just stays like that. Okay. It's not getting any sharper. It's not really getting any duller. That's just how it is. It's bird behavior. Don't worry about it. Stop putting your human experiences on something that's not human. He's non-human. They don't sharpen their beak. It's nonsense. It is. It's nonsense. Look at Sam. Sam's pretty popular, aren't you? He's a pretty good-looking guy. Hey! But I mean, he's kind of a douche. He is. But he's not really. He's a raven. In human terms, he's a douchebag. You know, he is. He's a douchebag. You might not want a raven. You might not want a sulfur-crested cockatoo. You might not want a gray parrot. You know, gray parrots bite, and it hurts. And cockatoos make a lot of noise. Are your neighbors going to be cool with it? Do you live in a city? You want a cockatoo? You better think twice about getting a bird. They all make noises. Do you hear the pigeons? They make noises too. Think twice. You can't have a bird living in a cage that's cruel. Okay? I'm just trying to help. I just don't want birds living in cages. It's ridiculous, right, Sam? Look at Sam. Hear that? What was that, Sam? See how he's puffing up like that? He's getting aggressive. Look at him. There you go, Sammy. He's making himself look bigger, puffing up like that, with his beak that he sharpened. Sharpening his beak. Give me a break.